Ashley, we were just talking offline about your TED Talk, which is one of the most viewed TED Talks of all time, which is a crazy claim to fame of yours. But so for today's conversation, I kind of want to bring you down to regular human level because that like skyrockets you to a whole other level. So what's bringing you back down just to relate to our audience a little bit? Because I want to know, having been on stages, having talking about speaking, personal branding, what's the most nervous you've ever been before walking on a stage?
Oh man, I'm always nervous. You know what makes me most nervous about speaking is getting paid a lot, which is so funny because it's just an integrity thing. I'm like, I really want to feel like I always provide the value I'm being compensated for. And we actually, at Wise Whisper Agency, we coach a lot of speakers lately on how to get paid gigs and all sorts of different things. And I always tell them, like, never use new material that never get paid for new material. Like, your new material should be tested on complimentary audiences. And so I don't know, there's something about the transaction where there's like the expectation where it's like, was that inspiring enough? And it's not to say I have imposter syndrome, but I think every single time I want to do my best. So I get stressed out every time, literally.
And that's a good thing, right? Doesn't it give you kind of momentum to get on stage and like feed that anxiety, nervousness, and everything? You got to hype yourself up. Well, so we're going to talk about personal branding and speaking and everything today. But let's start with something that you say. You say, don't do what you love, do what you are.
Yeah.
And I feel like this resonates with a lot of our audience because a lot of us solopreneurs start their business around a skill they're good at and then realize 5 years into the business, it owns them and they no
Yeah.
longer own the business. So
Yeah.
how do you help someone tell the difference between what they love, what they're good at, and who they actually are?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's really just the one thing that I look at the most first is, what are you good at? I think there's two things, I'm always holding on to. Number one is the what of what you do, and number two is the how of how you do it. So what I mean by that is the what has to do with your skill set. The how has to do with your core values. Your skill set presents you options, right? There's things in the market that need your skill set, and different things in the market that use your skill set could be a home for you to go harness it and contribute with it and give it to the world. The difference between all those different opportunities is a couple of things. Number one, is an opportunity, whether it's a business that you own and a service that you offer or a job that you have, does that opportunity sharpen that skill set most of the time? So as a business owner, you could be spread pretty thin, and it depends on what kind of business you have, right? Like, my gift is words. I'm probably using words in order to make revenue like 60% of the time. Like, I'm sitting here on a podcast, it's words, right? Um, I would say a lot of people, even if you have a gift, if you end up in a job or you have services that require you to be in a different skill set, the majority of the time you're not harnessing your gift. So that's the one thing. I think the second piece of the puzzle is the how, which is how you do things. And that has to do with core values. And I think core values are wildly misunderstood. So a lot of people think about values as like things they value. I value a lot of things, but I see your core values as the non-negotiable ingredients by which you live your life. And they're like principles, right? So, somebody is not in their core values. If you hung out with a friend, like, let's say you have a friend that's super funny, maybe humor is like a core ingredient of who they are. If they're not funny when you see them, you think something's wrong. Usually you're like, are you okay? You wouldn't think that of somebody else. It's them because it's their values, it's their essence, right? And so I think the core values are something that a lot of people misunderstand and are misdirected with. So people will say, oh, I value peace. Like, once I was career coaching for 12 years before I started Wise Whisper Agency. And I remember when I was career coaching, I had an attorney who was really struggling in her work. And I was like, okay, well, what are your core values? And one of them was peace. And I was like, well, you're a litigator. Like, you literally did not pick a peaceful path. Like, are you sure that's not aspirational? Because I trust that if a core value is peace, you would have broken down faster here. Like, you've been doing this for 10 years. When you look at your career, it's almost like your core values are a filter for what's a yes or a no. So if you have a certain line of work, but you value balance, let's say you're using your gift over here in your business and you're using it most of the time and you're sharpening it That's all good. But what about on the other side, if the place you have to use it is on a different time zone and one of your core values is balance and you're totally out of balance because of the time zone? It's a deal breaker. And so the thing about values is they're a filter of sorts for what's a yes for you and what's a no for you. And there's a difference between missing a value, like, let's say you love something, but you have a core value of fun, and it's using all these other parts of you, but you're not really like whatever fun means for you. That's okay. It's not ideal, but sometimes something is missing. That's one thing versus something being violated. That's different, right? So the time zone thing is a violation of the value. So the person who has a violated value is going to have a visceral experience of the absence of it.
How do you rectify, like, people that like, where they are right now and where they want to be? Like, are those like, how do you speak to that?
I think that a lot of people are trying to figure out who they are. And a lot of that has to do with the process of life, which is getting to know who you're not. And a lot of the problem I think that a lot of people have early in their career or their business is they just want a straight shot to the goal, whatever that means for them. And there is, I got a graduate degree in psychology, and one of the spiritual sayings that they would say all the time, they said, never rob someone the dignity of their process. There is a dignity to a process. I run my business now. We used to have white glove services to help people get talks on stages and stuff like that. And I realized eventually that getting people booked on stages was like a huge scope of work for my team to do. Obviously, I already knew that, but it was just a lot because I guarantee it. Like, I'm crazy like that. And so I guarantee everyone whatever they pay us for, we're going to do it. And so I moved over to more of a coaching offer, like helping people get paid gigs, helping people write their talk. And I could not get to the coaching offer without going through the headache of having to book 80 people on major stages, right? And we did it, but I suffered. I have literally gray hairs. I started to feel like Obama before and after the pregnancy with his hair, but my point being, it's like people do not want to go through the down to get to the up, but it is the dignity of the process, and stepping stones are your right to what you're supposed to do. And so I think that is the problem with a lot of people.
Yeah, I just want to jump in and say amen to that. That is so, people don't understand that there are places you cannot go without going through the bad places first. You'll never, you won't recognize the good place until you've been through the bad place.
Yeah.
And it's so important that people understand that I have been starting businesses since I was 30 years old. And I screwed up so many times, and even the ones that were successful, I screwed up in the beginning. And I had some failures, and there's no way that I would have found my way to the success without all the screw ups and all the pain.
Right.
And so I just want to drive that point home, that you don't look back and rue those things. You say, okay, that's the path I had to take to get to where I am, and recognize that it was the place I wanted to be.
Yeah. It's interesting as you're saying that because really success is a layering effect of experiences. And that's why there's a lot of sayings around people being successful too young. It's like you're shot to the moon. I actually was successful financially at like 26. I made $5 million in 2 months off an e-course after failing at it and going in extreme debt for 2 years. That was the thing about my success, was I just didn't stop until I figured it out. And I was like totally broke by the time I did. And then I created extreme wealth. And then I was 26 and didn't know how to manage numbers. And I had 10 employees, and I just let the whole ship sink, and lost all this money and didn't know what I was doing. Now my business is working. It's hard, but it works. I got a CFO in, and I would have never prioritized that salary on my payroll as fast as I did here, because I learned. And now it's like, oh, wow, this guy's going to make sure this operation doesn't go into the ground because I'm awesome at all this other stuff, but not math. And I think you really do just have to learn. And so I think core values and skill set are two ingredients that if you can actually be in an inquiry with that, you're going to get ahead faster. And a lot of the problem isn't just knowing these things or having the stepping stones, it's being honest with yourself. And that's another huge area that people struggle to be radically honest. And there's the theory of sunken cost, right? Like, I went to school to be a doctor. I spent 5 years being a doctor. How could I go be a tech person now? And it's like, well, the truth is the truth. So do you want to rip the Band-Aid today, or do you want to rip it in 6 years? Because unless you're 85, you're not retiring anytime soon in today's world. So, like, you have plenty of space and time to do something you love.
Yeah. Plus, I just totally agree. And, the thing is that it's not necessarily sunk cost either. A doctor that becomes a tech person is not the same as a tech person that becomes a tech person, goes to school for tech. You bring stuff to the table, and it's not some of these pivots that people make, and they're like, oh, I wasted my time. And it's like, no, you are unique. You have this skill set from here that you bring in this perspective into this new area, and it can be really magical. I mean, it can really, even for myself, I went from I majored in physics as an undergrad and then went into real estate development, which seems ridiculous. But it wasn't. I ended up writing some software using the physics stuff to figure out where to put the shopping centers, and it ended up working out really nicely in the long run. So, I don't even think of those as sunk costs, some of them.
Well, and I want to take a look at all these, the core values, who you are, and bridge everything into personal branding. Because I think a lot of solopreneurs struggle with that. Ashley, you're successful. You have a very strong personal brand. But a lot of our listeners are just starting out. They're just trying to figure out who they are from a personal branding standpoint, as opposed to wanting to go speak at South by Southwest next year. And so how should they approach it from the beginning when their personal brand isn't really a brand yet, and then they want it to become something?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I love helping people with is figuring out, number one, what is your signature talk? Like, what do you really have to say? Because everybody has something to say, whether you want to be a speaker or not. And number two, how do you get something as big like a TEDx talk, for example? It's 45 million subscribers. It's the biggest stage in the world. People ask me all the time, is it too late to do one? And I'm not affiliated with TED. I'm not them. But what I can say is it's simple math. Is it ever too late as a business to get in front of 45 million subscribers and talk about your thing? Probably not. And so I would say, from a personal brand perspective, people listening now should think about the internet like a bunch of islands. There's a podcast island, like right now, where I'm a guest on your show. I've been on a sabbatical from my show. I haven't done my podcast in a long while, but I have 500 episodes on there. So people find that big old island of episodes, not just the day they release, but every single day that they search those topics, right? So there's the island of having your own show. There's the island of being a guest on many shows. People keep finding you. There's the island of Instagram, the island of TikTok, the island of being on TV. A TED Talk happens to be, to me, a massive brand island that people find you forever, and it has a lot of authority, which, by the way, is very different than credibility. I think a lot of your listeners probably are thinking too much about credibility and not enough about authority. And what I mean by that is they're thinking, am I credible? Do I need a third, fourth, or fifth training to make myself certified or make myself legit? People aren't, if you're not getting hired or, supported in your business, it's usually not because of credibility. It's because of authority. There's a lot of people that have a lot of experience, education, whatever trainings they have, and you don't need another training to get more clients. You need authority, and authority has to do with being a household name. It has to do with being known for the thing you're known for. Just the other day in New York, I went to a party. My friend who works at Meta invited me, and I had no idea that the woman whose party it was, she has like 3 million people following her on Instagram. I've never seen her Instagram. I'm not very good at Instagram these days. But I walked into her party and I realized it was a career book, and I was a career coach for 12 years. And she goes, "Oh, Ashley Stahl, I learned career coaching from you." And it was like, cool. Is this your party? And so it's one of those things where, like, I don't have an ego that tells me that everybody knows me. But what I do have is an awareness that if you're a career coach the past 15 years, you've probably come across my content. and it's because of the authority. And to me, I love the idea of being an aspiring solopreneur because there's two ways to create a business. And the essence of this show is like really speaking to one way, which is like, you don't have to create a business you hate and push and hurt yourself. There's a way to attract opportunities to you. And that's why my 2 TED Talks I gave were the best things I ever did, because I sat on that stage for 10 minutes. And for literally 15 years after that, I got opportunities every single month. And these aren't just opportunities that I thought about or fought for. They are opportunities that people saw me and my gift and came to find me for. And so and through doing that, my career became this creative calibration with the universe where I put myself out there in the right energy and people think of things and come to me and help me form my career. Like I got a huge spokesperson deal with a fintech company. I got a book deal in Taiwan. I went on 100 podcasts in the United States. But the people that found the publisher in Taiwan that found my book, found it through my TED Talk. I sold more than 50,000 copies out there and became like a New York Times level bestseller. So the thing is that influenced who I am, what I see as possible. And it came because I put this big nugget of my brand out there. And so that's why I love speaking, is because if you really put your time into crafting one talk that is your best work, it's what you really have to say. And what we're really big on over at Wise Whisper is original thinking. Original thinking doesn't mean you're the only person who's ever said the thing. It means how you're saying it is landing in a unique and different way. So, for example, if I talk to you about getting outside of your comfort zone, that's like a soundbite. We hear people say that all the time, right? And what you automatically think is probably like doing something different. Like the guy that's dating and you tell him, get out of your comfort zone. It's like, all right, I'm going to ask the girl out at the bar. Like that's what socially we think about getting out of your comfort zone to mean. What I think about, I was just at a mastermind of business owners. All these guys were talking about lawsuits. And one next to me was saying, oh man, I didn't realize that when you become a successful entrepreneur, you get hit with like really weird lawsuits that you didn't do anything wrong. And like, it's just kind of the ridiculous part of the territory. And in that moment, I realized getting out of your comfort zone for me doesn't necessarily mean what I go do. It means what am I willing to go face? And that is my own thought about comfort zone. So original thinking isn't about not saying something that's said. It's about having a different texture to the way that you see it. And the problem with a lot of speakers and communicators is they haven't taken the time to really think about what's landing differently. And a great way to pressure test that is to ask your clients, like, what have I said that has changed the way you think or the way you be? What is the topic you're getting from me that's like influenced you the most? Because ultimately, my second TED Talk I gave, I asked my clients, what is the thing I've said to you about clarity that changed the way you think? And those became my talking points for my TEDx that went and got 10 million views.
So let me ask you this. So for solopreneurs who are like, I know what I want to say, I want to stand out, TED Talks sound great. Like if I can land that sounds awesome. You talk about bringing you into your speeches. And even though solopreneurs are their business, people don't like talking about, well, some people don't like talking about things that are too personal, too specific. So what is your response to that fear?
Yeah. Where you're like feeling too personal. Tell me a little bit more. Like if a talk feels like you're just oversharing.
Like if you're like, do you talk about bringing you, like showing who you are in your talks? And if they're like, I don't want to talk about my dog. I don't want to talk about my kids. I don't want people to know a lot about my life. I just want them to know about the topic. Why is bringing yourself into it so important? And how can people kind of combat that fear?
Well, so you actually can be, well, first of all, it depends what your topic is. So if you are a foot doctor and there's somebody in the audience that just broke their foot on the way into the speech, the bar for inspiration is low, the need for the content is high, right? And so it depends on your audience, right? Like, are you a doctor speaking to a sick audience and they just need to know how to get better? Usually there's a level of story that you need to connect with people emotionally. And so I would say, number one, yes, content rules. And there's 2 types of talks that I see often. And there's one that we index on when we're teaching people how to write their talk. So the first one is like a standard keynote where there's a message. When you think about those, it's like Maybe the message is just do it, like Nike, like just do it. And then the beginning of the keynote is somebody's story and it points to the just do it. And the middle is somebody that is more of a story, just do it. And the end is a story, just do it. You keep getting back to the message. That to me is very advanced speech writing. Like one of our creative directors wrote speeches for Steve Jobs' executive team at Apple for 13 years. She can easily write a keynote like that. But like not everybody can write like that. So the other type of speech that you can sell as a keynote on the speaking market is more instructional. It's more like a powerful opening, 2 to 3 points, and you close. And if you can really nail, so what you're asking me about is the client that has those 2 to 3 points. That's great. You still need a powerful opening. So you don't have to share about your dog and all your stuff. But what I would say is look back at your life and think about 10 moments, not events. There's a big difference between a moment and an event. An event is, I had my wedding in 2011. A moment is when I was cutting my cake at my wedding and I locked eyes with my dad. I felt this wave of gratitude that he was here for this moment. That's a moment, right? Like the vanilla smell of the cake hit my nose, right? So it's like really thinking about moments in time, not events. And I would think about 10 different moments throughout the course of your life that when you look back, that moment moved you, it did something for you. And by the way, those moments could be something you saw that has nothing to do with you, but it moved you. And so I think how you open up a talk, you can share a moment in time and bring people into the touch, taste, and feel of the moment. And a lot of people think, if I give a talk about gut health, I need to have an opening about a patient in my practice about their gut health. No, you don't. You can open up your gut health talk about a conversation you had in the subway, and all you have to do is find the thread, right? For example, just today, somebody in one of my programs to like craft your talk and get a TEDx and all the stuff that you do on stages, like she was presenting me with an opening story about like losing a baby and a miscarriage, but her talk is actually about burnout. So I looked at the opening story that she wrote and I'm like, how can we tie your topic into this so that the rest of your speech makes sense? Like if we want to share this story. And it was like, well, what pieces of this miscarriage point to burnout? And she's like, there's so many elements of it. There's the burnout of like my family not really getting how I feel. Like I always feel like I'm like trying to tell people how I feel. She's like, there's the burnout of all the medical appointments I had to do. And so she was able to start threading the concept of her talk and her talking points into the opening story without the story having to directly be. And I mean, her example was very much about her, but it could be a story about a person on the street that you saw. And then it's like, well, where's the thread with your topic? Because you have to thread the opening into your topic. Do you follow me? Am I making sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that all makes sorry. Do you want to keep going?
Oh, no. I just wrote out. I'm like, hopefully I'm not taking you on a wild ride and this makes sense. Yeah.
No, you're not at all. And it makes perfect sense. So another side to branding so you're talking about like formulating the great speech and all that. But another side to personal branding that I think swallows a solopreneur's life, especially, is that they feel like they constantly need to be posting, performing, optimizing, and just putting all their time into this personal brand. So how do you help clients build a brand that serves their life rather than just completely takes over it?
Yeah, I think it's really about focusing on one thing every year. So when I started my brand, my first year, I was like, I want to get a TED Talk. All I did was like put myself out there for those. And then by the end of that year, I got that talk. And all I did for 3 months was write it. All I did for 3 months was practice it. Once it went out, I got so much out of it. The second year, my brand was all about Twitter, or X, I guess now. I was all about like, how do I build a following there? And so my whole, like the TED Talk was done. It was behind me. And then I was like, how do I do this here? And my whole year was about learning it. And I spent one day a week on Twitter. I spent one day a week writing my tweets, scheduling them, interacting with people. And then I got a following there. And then the next year was about Instagram. So it's like, I think it's really about seeing this not as a sprint, but as a marathon and like really focusing. And I think the reason why I'm so interested in helping people with getting on major stages is because I just think it works quickly, and having a signature talk in your back pocket is very powerful. Like we helped somebody get his TEDx talk and write his TEDx talk. But what he didn't expect was that he got an award at a gala and he got on stage and they were like, you have 10 minutes to talk if you want. And he used his TED Talk script And then at the end, he gave a call to action to donate to a cause. And he accidentally raised like $2.5 million that night because he had the one signature talk in his back pocket. So I think my thing is just, we are living in very weird times right now. People are sad, they're scared, they're heavy. The world needs your voice more than ever if you are somebody that feels like they have something to say. And with the rise of AI, I think more events are happening. People want that connection, especially in the wake of COVID. And so I just think now is the time where if you have a voice and you want to be intentional about how you use it, you can create a lot through it.
So let me ask you this. Let's say a solopreneur is listening and they're like, Ashley, this makes so much sense. I would love to raise over $2 million in one night through a speech that I ever get on a TED Talk stage. But I've never talked to anybody more than a Zoom call. That's the extent of my audience. This is what we're doing right here. What would you say to them as their first step towards that bigger stage? What are the baby steps to get there?
Yeah, I would say the first thing is like write a powerful talk. And before you even write the talk, start to ask people where you have original thoughts. Start to ask people where you've said something that's clicked in. And then I would say from there, like everybody has 3 to 5 topics or more living inside of them, but just because you can talk about something doesn't mean you should. So I would say like ask yourself, of these topics, what is my goal? Is your goal to get clients? Is your goal to get authority? And is your goal to become a paid speaker? Pick the topic that supports that goal, right? Like if the topic to get you clients is medical, but the topic you want to be a speaker on is about success, talk about success. Like that's the thing you want to be a paid speaker on, right? So pick the topic that serves the goal, number one. Number two, of those topics that serve your goal, which one has the most original thinking? Because, with our white glove services, we've had clients come in that are akin to like a Rockefeller level sort of person with like a 50-year career. And they come in and they're like, oh, I could talk about so much. Like, yeah, you could, but like past 50 years, what are 2 or 3 conclusions you've come to about your life? And it's like, what do you deeply believe to be true? And people actually have a lot less to say than they think. So I think it's really about getting to the heart of like, where do you really have original thoughts and where do you really have deep senses of belief?
And then are they just like, should I talk to my clients first and then pitch a local
even
group?
Oh, like how to get the gigs?
Yeah.
So one thing we have over at Wise Whisper is a software that like almost like allows people to see like how many paid gigs there are in the United States in their topic, and they can, use the service of the software to unlock that person's email. We just have something proprietary over here. But I think there's other services that do stuff like that where you can look for paid gigs as a speaker. And that's the thing about like my TED Talks is like that just created inbound for me. The other way to do it is to go outbound and prospect, right? It's like getting a job, right? Like you prospect, you send emails, you find out about gigs, you contact them about them, you have the right materials, right? Like having a good speaking reel, having a clear message. That's why, like, once you write your talk, if you can go give it somewhere for free and get somebody to record it and turn that into a speaking reel, that's a really good asset to have as well.
Hey, I'm just wondering, can we back up for just a minute? Because I feel like we skipped over something that, at least for me, is like, okay, how do I do that? So writing a great speech. Now, you can't give a coaching session on how to write a great speech, but if you could give maybe like 2 or 3 pointers or 2 or 3 don't do these things. I mean, you kind of said, focus on something that you're passionate about. I get it, but is there anything that in terms of how you approach it that you could give in a couple of bullet points, or is that just too big an ask?
No, I would say we see speeches as 115 words per minute. So that's like one thing to think about. So usually 3 minutes fit on one page. So if you have a 10-minute talk, you're looking at 3.5 pages times New Roman 12. So I think about structure, like how long of a talk do you want to write? I also think the speaking market, like if a booker is like, hey, we want a 45-minute keynote, there is a way for you to say, well, I have a 20-minute keynote and we could do 20 minutes of Q&A. What do you think? So there's ways to position what you want to do. So you don't have to overdo yourself, right? So let's say you want to start with 20 minutes. That's like a 6-page talk. If you have an exercise where people need to like pause and reflect, maybe that's like 5.5 pages. So I think just understanding structure How you open a talk with like a powerful emotional opening, we see that as like 25% of your talk. So the first quarter of your talk. So if you have 5 pages, just over a page is going to be your opener. So I think it's just thinking in structure. We also don't really believe you can fit more than like 2 to 3 points in a 20-minute talk. So that's something structural you can think about, is like, how much space does each point get? I think if you can think about it that way, you're not just like writing, but you have structure you're writing in.
Is there anything like, I mean, to be effective, say in a TEDx or TED Talk, TEDx Talk, anything that, in terms of, I don't know, like you talked about the emotional components and
Yeah.
like showing change. I mean, I know like some of the greatest stories that we love show a change in the character, right? And that really, if you look at things like A Christmas Carol, right? Scrooge changes, and we just all love that happening. Is that something that could be applied to a TED Talk or TEDx Talk or something?
I think the most important thing with a script for a TEDx talk is you have to realize there's the talk that people are hearing with the content you have to say, and then there's the theme beneath the content. So we helped a client write a talk. He was in one of our intensives, and it was about racism in the banking system and how people of color, like the history of where banks have been and who they've given credit to, have left people of color without access to credit, without mortgages, and then without family generational wealth that other populations have. I was telling him, I'm like, God, I love this topic, and not a lot of people are going to click it unless you can connect, because there's certain people that are interested in this, right? So how do we get everybody to connect? So I think what makes a talk do really well, especially a TEDx talk, is when you have a theme beneath the talk that people can feel deeply. So what is racism really about? I mean, ask anyone, they're going to have a different thought. To me, it's about justice. It's about doing the right thing. It's about people feeling othered. It's about fairness. If you can start putting sound bites in your talk about fairness, about doing the right thing, if you can ask questions to the audience about that, you're connecting beneath the talk to the audience on a much deeper level. And that's what makes a talk do well.
Hitting the emotional, not just the factual. Cool. Thank you.
Well, I know you're not supposed to like pick your favorite kids or anything, or like maybe say stuff like this, but this has been one of my favorite interviews, truly, that we have done, and the nearly 300. I just think all of this is so helpful, and you just explain all of it so well. I can see why you are where you are.
Thank you so much.
But Ashley, on that note, we ask all of our guests this question, and because you've helped so many others find success, and I think you're really going to help our listeners, so we have to ask you, what is your favorite quote about success?
One of my favorites is that success is the warmest place to hide. I think about that because in times that I've been really successful, I can see myself like hiding behind it. Like I stopped doing certain development on myself. It's almost like my ego allows me to hide. And so I feel like that quote humbles me.
That is a first. That is a first.
Yeah, I had to think about it for a sec.
We hear some of these over and over again, but that's a new one. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Ashley, if you've inspired somebody listening today to be like, you know what, I'm going to do it, but I want her help, I want her agency's help, where can people find you?
Yeah. On my website, you just go to wisewhisperagency.com/speak, and we have an application to work with us. We're really intentional about who comes in. You can get an invitation to talk to my team, or wisewhisperagency.com/calendar, and you can just book a call.
Perfect. And those will be in our show notes. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. This was just so wonderful. And like I said, I think it'll be so helpful.
Yay. Thank you so much for the good feedback. And, I nerd out on this all day, so it makes me really happy if it helps anyone. And I'm here for any questions in my DMs too on Instagram.
Perfect. I'm sure it will. And listeners, if you want to help other people listen to this, share this episode with a friend, leave us that 5-star review, shameless plug, but it really does help us get this word out to other solopreneurs, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. And we'll see you next time on the Aspiring Solopreneur.